Welcome to the UNSW PLT info session. Thank you everyone for coming. My name's Pamela Taylor Barnett and I am a senior lecturer in the UNSW PLT program. I teach values in practice and administrative law in our program, and admin law is an elective. We'll come to those things later on. I've had a career in social justice legal practice, and you'll find that everyone in our program has had a fairly lengthy career in some part of practice. I want to begin by acknowledging the Bidjigal, Gadigal, Ngunnawal and Ngambri people who are the traditional custodians of the lands that all of our UNSW campuses stand on. When we do PLT, we are very mindful of the many lands that students join us from. And for me, that is our beautiful Wurundjeri country down here. I also pay my respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders past and present. And in PLT, I was thinking about this again, and we cover so many negotiation skills and advocacy skills and communication skills. And I really just think we should acknowledge that Aboriginal people have harmoniously done all of those things on this land for thousands of years before us. So let's begin this session with a question about what the PLT is and how it helps you to become a lawyer. So the PLT, as you can see there on that slide, really is that in-between step between completing your law qualification and being admitted to practice. And so for that reason, it is very much a skills-focused course. And we are going to begin talking more about that in a moment, but I think we should firstly just quickly cover off the requirements that there are to enrol. So first of all, you need to have an LLB or a JD, and that's got to be complete. Or if the LLB and JD are not complete, then you have to have either you have to have all of your Priestley 11, which is the core subjects in your law degrees, completed, and you need to have no more than 2 electives remaining. So if that is you, then we call that an early start. And then I'd like you to just contact our PLT team with that. The email address, perhaps somebody might pop it into the chat for me. That's plt@unsw.edu.au. We recognise students from any institution in Australia. You're all invited to undertake PLT at UNSW, and there's no WAM requirement. So that probably covers off the basics about the requirements about how you enrol. But before we get into the nitty-gritty about our program, we wanted to introduce you to one of our lovely alum. Beck O'Brien is a senior regulatory officer at the Australian Space Agency. How cool is that? How cool is Beck's background? Like, I think it's just such an unreal way to use your law degree. Beck studied the PLT at UNSW in 2022, and she's going to share a little bit about her background journey and how studying the PLT helped her achieve her career ambitions. Thanks so much, Beck. We just love having you back. So I'm going to just throw to you.
Thanks very much, Pamela. And fortunately, I can confirm that working for the Australian Space Agency is somehow even cooler than what everybody thinks it is. But before I begin, I'd like to also acknowledge the Ngunnawal people and the Ngambri peoples whose lands I'm joining you today from Canberra. I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respects to their very kind welcome from their aunties and uncles that I leave my footprints on this place. And seeing as this is a law-focused evening, I'm going to start this with a disclaimer as well. I'm here today representing my own personal views and not that of the agency. So I'd just like to make that clear and pop that out straight away. So as Pamela mentioned, I'm a senior regulatory officer in the Australian Space Agency. I work within the Office of the Space Regulator, who holds responsibility for the regulation of launch and return of Australian space objects and high power rockets. This isn't my first job, though. I originally started my career and my law degree working in universities. I worked in student misconduct, appeals and complaints, a very policy-based and procedural-based role. And I started my law degree with the goal of not becoming a lawyer, but rather extending my experience and abilities, so professional development in that area. I started my law degree at ANU, and I think, mostly to my own surprise, I was actually quite good at law. I loved it. I was really attracted to kind of the certainty that legislation, case law, set rules pop down, and how kind of again case law and judgments provide these really strong indicators of how laws can be applied to novel contexts. That's just something I think from a policy background really worked in my mind. And as a result of that, across my career, I'd actually moved over to UNSW working in governance. And at this stage, I decided, well, great, I can absolutely still become a lawyer and practice law within universities. So the plan became to join UNSW's, or really any university's general counsel, working probably within intellectual property law, to help universities better understand how they could protect their academics and their research as intellectual property within grant spaces, particularly with co-commercial grants. As you can tell from my current job, this did not quite go to plan. Quite late in my law degree, I was working full time and studying part time, and to try and knock out my degree a little bit quicker, I picked up a mid-session special topics in international law, space law, with a fellow known as Stephen Freeland, who, as it turns out, is kind of one of the preeminent space lawyers internationally. And I came in thinking, oh, it's interesting, it'll be a bit of fun, I'll knock it out over a summer session and it's another unit done. 2 lectures in, I was hooked. Space law was just this amazing and different set of, I suppose, legal principles that are both extremely established. Outer space treaties internationally go back to the 50s, but at the same time, desperately trying to keep up, particularly within domestic legislation, within nations, with this ever-evolving and changing and shifting technological and kind of commercial entrance into space. And I mean, besides that, space is just objectively cool. I cannot push that enough. And I will make a side note, which this comes around a little bit later, but I love space, but I can't count. And that really kind of shuts down your career options in space. So when I discovered space law, I jumped full in, completely in about 2 seconds, changed every single one of my career plans. This career I'd been building for 10 years just got chucked out the window. My degree completely changed and shifted. I moved into a research project, actually trying to understand and study how international law would apply to permanent and semi-permanent settlements of both nations and commercial entities on the moon, as we started moving towards kind of, well, Artemis, you can see they're setting up, they're looking towards setting up settlements, but we're also talking about kind of space resource exploitation on the moon, which is kind of your traditional sort of mining, which there is very many chances Australian companies will be heavily involved in, if not the tech, then the undertaking. But also things that you don't really think about, like sunlight on the moon. That's going to be a major source of energy and power, and it's actually really limited, particularly in the spaces where there's water. So how we manage and shift that was, that became part of a research project that I undertook. finished up my degree and went, what's next? Space, becoming a space lawyer isn't, I suppose, a traditional career path for lawyers. So I decided to start my PLT while I figured out what to do. I was thinking about picking up different sorts of options. So insurance law is, it sounds weird to say, but it's a really common way that lawyers engage in space issues, particularly commercial issues. For example, some of you may have heard that Intelsat just broke up in GEO, which is a very important kind of orbital parameter for telecommunications and things. That satellite wasn't insured, and that is not a great thing considering how much money it costs to get something into space, to build it, and then actually to keep it there. So I was looking into that. I hadn't quite pictured my future in space being insurance, but one jumps in as they can. So it started the PLT and was looking towards kind of, I suppose, the different options that I had. And that's when the Australian Space Agency started advertising. Office of the Space Regulator popped out basically a request for people from a range of backgrounds: law, engineering, commercial, so people with backgrounds from Boeing, to join the Office of the Space Regulator, which was really lucky for me, but an incredible long shot. So whilst I was doing the PLT, I'm scrambling to find people in the Australian Public Service. Some of you might be aware the Australian Space Agency is actually part of the Department of Industry, Science and Resources. So I am an Australian public service at the federal level. I jumped in there, I brought beers, I did favours, I begged and I pleaded for resume reviews and practice interviews. And while I'm doing this, I was lucky enough to be doing the PLT at UNSW, which provided me with the flexibility to actually move away from the straight 20 weeks of practical experience to undertake a section of that as a practicum. And as a result of that, I actually got to be working on designing a fake ministerial brief for the Snowy Mountains space debris re-entry event. And as luck would have it, whilst I'm doing that, I received an offer, probably best day of my life, to join the Australian Space Agency. And from kind of there, as a result of this, I actually don't practice law in what I do. My role is within regulatory reform. So my job is to know and understand the Australian Space Launch and Returns Act and associated rules better than just about anybody else, but also to be designing it to try and keep up with commercial and government requirements. So kind of as a result of what I do, and I suppose what the PLT led me into, is this role where I'm helping to develop the rules and norms of a safe, sustainable and peaceful future in outer space, which is insane. I don't just know the law. I have to help to build and to grow domestic and international frameworks to guide us towards this future, which I suppose is kind of a bit more like Star Trek than Star Wars, exactly at the point that we're making our first big leap into outer space. And it was, I suppose, I was really lucky to both start my career in the Space Agency and with the UNSW PLT, because both of those together, I think, really set me up to do what I love to do, and I love doing it every day. So that's why I was so happy to come along today to have a chat to you guys about my experience, I suppose, both at work, but also the PLT, and to really encourage you to think about doing your PLT with UNSW.
Oh, thanks so much, Beck. I love that connection with, not just knowing the law, but applying the law. And that's really what PLT is about. That's where we're at. Like, we recognise that most of you by now are pretty good at doing some of these things, but we're about how we apply that. And I also really want to encourage everyone to seek out stories like Beck's. You've got mentors in the community. Try to hear their stories, because we're all on this kind of career trajectory. Okay, let's have a little look at PLT. We're going to hear from Beck a little bit again later, and you're welcome to ask her some questions. I'd like to invite you actually at this point to just pop your questions into the chat. We have other people, wonderful Jess and Steph behind the scenes helping me to answer some questions. So please do pop your questions into the chat. We will answer those as much as we can. Essentially, UNSW PLT. Oh, goodness me, I think I've lost my little place. Where was I? Oh, goodness me. That's funny. What we are, as you can see, we've got 40 days of workplace experience, but we don't usually see people do that first. Some people might do that first, but most people do that second. We start with that immersive 5-day workshop. Then we move on to a 19-week coursework period. And you can see that we are really focusing on a competency-based program. You'll see that, that's what PLT is about. It's about getting people ready for practice. We, of course, are very interactive. Our educational approach immerses you in real-world practices in law. We explore complex ideas with you, and we're aiming to help you to be the type of lawyer that you want to be in all meanings of the word type. And we are very much underpinned by an ethos of justice for all, and we keep those ideas very live. So, right now I'm blogging with my students, about the ways in which lawyers affect and interact with sustainable development goals. So, yes, what are we? Well, you're up to that slide. Excellent. Our coursework is wholly online. Each course is undertaken sequentially, but you will study your chosen electives at the same time. So you can see that looks perhaps like they are taken one after the other, but at the end, they're taken side by side. Each course has been developed with subject matter experts from across the profession, stamping our program with authenticity and relevance across various legal practice. It's really quite delightful. We don't have exams or essays or group assessments. The tasks that you are asked to do are those which you might expect to do in your early years of practice. You will engage with interactive resources. You meet every week with practitioner mentors, and you will work on a variety of simulated client files. We review your assessments against our competency-based grading system, and you receive extensive feedback, probably far more feedback than you are familiar with receiving. And Beck's smiling, because that's kind of actually how it might feel. Where necessary, we support you to resubmit work, because we are really aiming and very interested in bringing you up to the standard necessary for competent practice. So I'll just say a little bit about the practicum. The practicum is an alternative to workplace experience 2 in our GDLPP. It gives you the opportunity to practice your legal skills in an alternative setting to a work placement, although sometimes people might actually take the practicum in a workplace experience kind of setting. It's almost quasi-legal in that sense. We give you that opportunity to explore new areas of law, and that's what Beck was referring to when she mentioned doing a project with us. We might come back and talk to you again about that later on, Beck. But You're going to develop and work on your own practicum project under the guidance of the practicum mentor if you do take this. Note that the practicum is not compulsory. It's an option to workplace experience too. Some students will take it, but most will do our workplace experience too, which is 20 days on top of your first 20 days, equaling 40 days essentially. Okay, let's have a look at why we perhaps might choose UNSW, because I'm sure that's why you're here. Our vision of PLT is designed to develop your practical skills and your proficiency in your day-to-day practice, and to ensure that that you don't only satisfy competency standards for entry-level lawyers, but we're really interested in helping you to surpass those standards. Okay, what we offer. We're offering a range of features that distinguish ourselves from other programs. We are, of course, as you would probably know, ranked first in Sydney. UNSW Law School is ranked first in Sydney, and we are 12th globally, bringing with it our reputation of excellence that such a ranking essentially provides, and we are highly regarded by employers. UNSW PLT has been developed with subject matter experts from across the profession, stamping our program with, as I mentioned earlier, authenticity. We incorporate best practice and emergent educational technologies. And on that topic, we have recently incorporated quite a bit of AI. It's fun. It's a little bit experimental for us as well. But we are really interested in making sure that the practitioners that we are developing are familiar with current technology. That is very important to us. We want to give you an enriched learning experience. UNSW PLT offers a flexible, predominantly digital pathway to practice. We provide access to career services to help you maximise your employability. And UNSW PLT offers you interaction with practitioner mentors. As I've mentioned quite a few times, it's really valuable. They will help you to engage with your coursework, and they'll share skills and knowledge that are directly relevant to your work or your future work as legal practitioners. In the many, many ways that you might go on to practice, be that in legal practice or in, a non-legal practice way. Let's have a look at our, I think, our fees and scholarships slide. You can see there that I think a domestic is 11,100 and an international student is 13,320. Earlier, I mentioned if you take the practicum, and as I said, not everyone does that because most people do workplace experience in 1 and 2, but I do have plenty of students doing the practicum, and you can see that increases. It's a fee-paying course, so format 2 is where you're taking that practicum as well. Okay, we've got applications are currently open, so please do go onto our website and press enroll now. I think it says enroll now. I think, yeah, maybe it's changed, but please do that. So it's time really for us to enter into our audience Q&A. But before I welcome back Beck, I really want to introduce Joshua Wern, who's currently studying his PLT with us. I think we've got a slide about Josh. Is that, I'm not sure if that's up there yet. Steffi, you there? Yeah, great. So I'm going to, again, ask you to keep popping your questions in the chat. And let's kick off with a couple of questions for Josh and for Beck. If you see any questions in the chat, can you please give it a thumbs up? And that's going to help us to prioritise the order that we answer things or prioritise some of the questions. That would be very helpful. Josh, welcome.
Hi, thanks.
Yeah, I'm so excited that you've been able to join us. Thank you so much. Josh, you studied your undergrad elsewhere, and I just was wondering, let's just start while people are posting their questions. Can you tell us what made you choose to complete your PLT with UNSW?
Yeah, so I didn't give the PLT all that much thought during my undergraduate degree. And then as I approached the end of the degree, I kind of went, oh crap, I need to do this PLT. So I was frantically starting to research the different ones that were out there. And I mean, there's not a lot of information that I gleaned. And then I got a generic email that was sent to all the people in my kind of year at university from the deputy dean that recommended this one. She knew some of the staff in the program and used to work at UNSW before she moved to my university, and recommended this program over the others, and that was enough for me to pick this one over the others, and no regrets.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you. Do you think you had a clear idea of what PLT was going to be like? And actually, my second related question is, was it like that?
So I had no real expectations going in to PLT because I was quite late to enroll in it. And by the time I did enroll in it, the immersive was, I think, about 2 weeks later. So by the time I enrolled, it was kind of knocking at my door already. So I didn't have much time to set expectations. Yeah. But it was very different to what I did start to think it was going to be like, because I just assumed it was going to be an extension of your undergrad degree. It's similar aspects, but it is a very different program with a different focus, I think, in terms of what they want you to get out of it.
Great. What did you find so different? What's the is it the way it's so much more practical, or
yeah? So it's a much more real world kind of approach to the way you're taught, rather than a theoretical approach. Like, it's very much do this, here's some feedback, rather than here's a textbook, have a read of it and tell me what you think. And then even beyond that is the feedback you would get is constructive and tells you, what you did well and what might need some tweaking. And then you've got an opportunity to apply those changes and see whether you've done it appropriately from people that actually practice in the area that you're currently working in. So it's a very good way to learn.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Beck, welcome back. You have achieved, clearly, a great deal in a short amount of time. Can you shed a little bit more light about how the UNSW PLT helped you to feel job ready?
Yeah, so I think my experience is maybe a little bit different to say an undergraduate student coming in straight off the back of an undergrad degree, because I had a bit of career experience under my belt. But in saying that, though, my heading into the public service meant a really significant career shift for me, not quite knowing what to expect, and having that level of trepidation about am I going to be good at this? I figured out that I can do law, but am I going to go all right in the public service? So being able to do the practicum for me, even though it does cost a little bit more money, gave me this opportunity to work through a really kind of public service skill base, which is ministerial briefings, in a really safe and supportive environment. So what I was able to do was, one, come up with my own plan for my practicum, with a lot of support and guidance from my practitioner mentor. So I could do what I thought would benefit me to help me to become career ready. But also it meant heading into this sort of briefing system, I had somebody to guide me in a space where I wasn't going to stuff up the first thing that I did in a job, even if I was just there for, say, a experience. So I was able to, as part of that, work out a plan where I would create a fake ministerial brief on the Snowy Mountains SpaceX debris event, which had actually happened whilst I was studying. And with Annika's help, I was able to walk through what the expectations of the APS are in briefing. We were able to talk and discuss about taking really complex legal ideas and communicating them in a straightforward but still accurate way, which for me has become a really important part of my daily job, because a big part of what I need to do is take complex legal issues to do with space law and explain them to literal rocket scientists who are great at rockets, not so great at law. Don't feel too bad for me though. They have to explain literal rocket science to me, so it's much rougher on them, I can promise you. Yeah, so with that kind of like ongoing feedback, and as Josh mentioned, it wasn't just a one and done. I didn't sit down and write it, submit it, and it go away. I sat down and I worked with Annika, pulling together a lot of the information and background things, even things like the APS style guide, which I would have had no idea about if I wouldn't have undertaken that in particular. And I could bit by bit across a number of weeks work with her to start with what was a quite probably, knowing what I produce now, a really unacceptable brief, to something that I probably would still submit today, with changes in experience, of course, but it's still something I could be proud of. And it really kind of let me step into the APS with a sense of confidence that I at least had given something a shot before in a really supportive environment.
Great, thank you. One of the beautiful things about our program is that we do have so many mentors who've come and worked in very many different places. And I know that Annika has worked in the APS, so that's just an example of that. Thanks,
She
Josh.
Absolutely brought some amazing insights. If you are thinking about the APS, I could not recommend Annika enough.
Oh, that's lovely feedback. Josh, in terms of your work experience, I believe that you did the Workplace Experience 1 and Workplace Experience 2 model, which is the first format that we mentioned. Did you want to say describe what you did about workplace experience? Do you want to describe that for us?
Yeah, so I did the Workplace Experience 1 and 2, so the 40 days, and I did it at the Kingsford Legal Centre on UNSW campus in Sydney. And yeah, it was really, it's in a real legal centre with real clients, so it's definitely not a theoretical 40 days. It's definitely practical, and each day was different. Some days you would be answering client calls and perhaps either booking them in for appointments or referring them to different services, talking them through that kind of first contact that they make with the legal centre. Other days you might sit in with a client and take some details before the solicitor comes in and would give advice, in which you would take a file note of the advice appointment. Other days you might actually go out into the world and attend outreaches at different community centres, different community hubs. At the Prince of Wales Hospital, they do a outreach program as well. There's so many that you can attend. Other days you'd be working on a case with one of the solicitors. You might be doing research on a certain law or something like that. You would be drafting documents, letters of demand, statements of claim, emails, all sorts of things. Every day was different, and you definitely learn a lot.
Amazing, isn't it? The Kingsford Legal Centre, for those who maybe are not UNSW people, is a CLC that is based, Community Legal Centre, that is based on our campus. And we are so lucky that we can send some of our PLT students there. We have a range of other partners that we work with as well. So we'd be, always able to connect you with those partners. Including other CLCs, including, firms, etc. Josh, did you sort of end up progressing your career? We talked about that a little bit this morning, into something more social justice focused now, by the sounds of it. That's really exciting. Do you want to talk to us about that?
Yeah, so after my 40 days of workplace experience finished, the top three directors at the Kingsford Legal Centre really did facilitate me gaining another role at another community legal centre that they knew quite well and knew the principal solicitor there. So they coached me through writing my resume, my cover letter. They told me how to fix it up to make it look favourable to the community sector. They coached me through the interview process prior to doing it. They told me some keywords to mention, and they also provided me a reference, which was invaluable to me getting the role.
Fantastic. It's really fun for us to hear about students having fun at KLC, and thanks so much for sharing that. I'm interested in a response from both of you about whether you would recommend the PLT to others, and what you would say to the people watching tonight who might be interested in PLT. Beck, do you want to go first?
So I'm here tonight because I'm a really big proponent specifically of the UNSW PLT. The team behind it are really, I suppose that they're really supportive, but they've spent so much time to work to consider what are the skills that you don't get in your law degree, and how do you create a space where you can not only just be introduced to them, but put them into practice so you can walk out of your PLT confident that you've got the baselines to kick you off into a successful career. I think I enjoyed the PLT so much more because it was so practical. There is absolutely that information feed in, but so much about it is experiential. I don't think that there was a single subject that we covered that didn't result almost kind of immediately, because you do them in quite quick self-contained units. So almost immediately you'd suck in information on solicitors' rules or client keeping your books and things. Yes, all of those interesting things. And again, I'm terribly bad with numbers. So client trust accounting is not particularly my jam, but being able to take that information almost immediately, put it into practice, and then get a surprising amount of feedback, and not you're bad, give it another shot, but constructive and really strong feedback. I think as a sorry, I don't want to G myself up here, but as a probably a high performing law student, I never actually received that much feedback. I got a lot of, this was good, it could be better next time, not how or how I could kind of push myself to improve on my work. PLT gave that in spades, which is, as well as the really supportive and kind environment you find yourself in, that ability to put theory into practice is absolutely why I support UNSW PLT.
Oh, great, thank you so much. We really do believe in kindness in our program. Our team are all members of a small group of academics within the university who are really pushing kindness within the university. So I know that you'll actually all really enjoy that part of it too. So thanks for suggesting that as well. We do love feedback, but we do gentle feedback. Josh, would you recommend it? You're current. What do you think? What would you like to say to people who do not?
Yeah, pretty much echo exactly what Beck said. Like, it's a really supportive environment. I was nervous coming into UNSW as someone that did my undergrad elsewhere, so I was unfamiliar with the UNSW law faculty. I didn't know any of the tutors prior, so I was obviously a little bit nervous about what they might be like, but they're all very lovely, all happy to help, all there's no such thing as too many questions for them, at least in my experience. And yeah, they're always super available, which is invaluable when you're trying to do these quite practical tasks that you do get set. And yeah, happy to answer your questions, which is always nice.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Josh. I think we'll take some audience questions at this point. I think that there was an earlier question posted about support in the program, and I know you've just sort of spoken to that, Josh. What sort of support did you end up needing to lean on any of that support? What sort of support did you kind of experience in the program?
So yeah, it was largely around the completion of the tasks, because you would get a myriad of tasks. Like, it wasn't just draft this letter. It was it was drafting emails to colleagues and sorts of tasks that you would do in the real world that you might not have done previously. So it was just around leaning on them in terms of the vernacular that might be appropriate in certain bits, also the layout of certain documents, and yeah, they were just always available for whatever you had to ask for, whatever it might have been. And then even just in terms of from more administrative aspects, not having used UNSW systems and technologies before, they were happy to help me navigate their websites and Moodle and all of these things I hadn't used previously, which is I would have been lost without. So that was amazing.
Great, thank you. So for everyone, we use Teams, Microsoft Teams. Many of you will be very familiar with Microsoft Teams. We use it as a platform for our own webinars, as you're experiencing now, although you're in a live mode, and we use a normal meeting mode. We also like you to just chat to us, and that really means that we've just opened up this lovely conversational mode that you would all be quite familiar with, because we all use sort of chat services, and that's how we love you to reach out to us, and that's how we reach out to you. So it really does create a nice connection between you and us. We're moving away from that sort of formality, I suppose, of emails, etc. A couple of questions that I have here in the chat are, if we do PLT as an early start enrollee, does the program count as credit units for the 1 to 2 remaining electives? It doesn't. No, we don't. We can't, unfortunately, offer you credit in that way. Do you recommend completing the PLT while in the final year of law school, or after completing the law course? So these questions are going to what I referred to as the early start, when I said if you've only got maybe 2 electives remaining. I think that you need to assess your load. That's very important. Sometimes students do have a number of subjects remaining, and they're also trying to juggle a lot of other things. That's challenging for you potentially as a load. Not necessarily for everyone though, because you all have your own circumstances and your own capacities. So I don't think I can necessarily give a definitive answer on that, but we'd be very happy to chat that through if you felt that you needed to talk more about that. What sets our program apart from other ways to do this, from other programs potentially? I'm not able to really speak for other programs. I've not worked within them, but I can tell you that our program is going to deliver you something that is supportive and kind, but really aiming to progress you. We are as I say, we are practitioners. We're heavily involved within my team in an organisation called APLEC, which sets the kind of competencies for new lawyers, and we're actively thinking constantly about what the profession needs and what people really are going to be looking at engaging with. And we have, you know, fantastic guests for you to interact with. So yeah, it's an interesting question though, and I think that's something that you'll all be balancing and weighing up, and we're really happy to continue those conversations. The one-on-one consults QR code has just been popped on the screen there, and I really encourage you to talk to us about your individual circumstances. And look, even if you can't make it in the next couple of days, please reach out to us on the PLT email address, or reach out to our wonderful Future Students team and, you know, talk through your situations. And I've got another question. So, do most students who come through the PLT also have a job that they are juggling with their studies? Yes, absolutely, they do. Absolutely. Most of our students have something else going on, and it's frankly probably usually work, but not always. It could be, you know, work plus caring, or work plus other committee roles. Like, there can be lots of things going on for people. We're really mindful that you're all individuals, and yes, most people are balancing work as well. If we are current, oh, pardon me, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to step in to mention that I did my PLT whilst working full time and didn't have a problem with it whatsoever. You'll need a little bit of time off for the first 5-day immersive, and then obviously some time off to undertake your practical legal experience. But in terms of the study load, I did not struggle at all. I found it entirely manageable, actually far more manageable than working and doing the law degree.
There you go. There you go. We're really very easy to reach, and if you're having trouble with a particular due date because something's happened, you know, you can just reach out to us. We're very, very flexible and easy to reach. If we're currently working as a legal intern, paralegal, or volunteering in a law-related capacity, are we exempt from any of the applied workplace hours? It may be that you will get retrospective credit for work that you've done previously. We will assess that, of course. But if you think you've done practice work, or, you know, worked in a community legal centre, or you've done a clinical placement, you know, lots of different variety of things previously, which is in the 2 years prior to you starting PLT, we can give you retrospective credit for those days, up to really up to 25 days worth of credit. In terms of whether you're currently working in it as a legal intern, loads of our students, probably maybe even most actually, are working in some kind of a way that counts their placement towards PLT. The placement doesn't have to be an extra. It can be your current job. And what you'll do then is you'll just apply for our usual workplace experience, explain what you're currently doing, and then it'll be approved, and that's how you'll work it. So yeah, it can definitely count, and that would be reasonable. We obviously will assess each one individually. What do we mean by the immersive? That's a great question. I'm so sorry if that wasn't clear. The immersive is what we call the first 5 days of the PLT. You are immersed into an enjoyable online experience. At this stage, we might be running 2 to 3 days of those in person, but either way, even if we do run that in person for 2 to 3 days at the start of your PLT, there'll be an online option as well. We offer full online as well. So yeah, that's what the immersive is. And we get you to do a lot of skills. We don't just talk at you for 5 days straight. You are practicing skills, doing interviewing. You might be doing a negotiation, a mock negotiation. You could do a mock mediation. There will be a little bit of advocacy in a very supportive way with some barristers. It's quite fun. Yeah, in small groups. Josh, what did you think about that? What did you think about the immersive activities, Josh?
Yeah, well, the immersive was it's 5 days, so it's a full-on experience. But yeah, it is varied. You do, as you said, different things. You do mock interviews, you stuff like that, and then you do the advocacy portion at the end, which was enjoyable. I did it in a very small group. I think there was about 6 or 7 of us at Parramatta, and we did it with a barrister and Moira, and it was excellent. It was really good to learn.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was
excellent.
It was interesting.
Yeah. Most students really enjoy the immersive days because it's not, we really don't want to just be talking heads, and we bring in lots of experts. The former commissioner, we bring in someone who is in a top firm working as a legal project manager. It's really cool. Do we assist students with disabilities in assisting them to get through the PLT, and how do we help them? I've heard students with lots of disabilities. Some where we've needed to provide as extra assistance, like, you know, that might be through their equity and inclusion plan, and we may have needed to provide a captioner or, you know, various things that are arranged through equity and inclusion. But just a lot of students also who are juggling different events in their lives, or sometimes disabilities of very many broad nature. We really are very supportive, and we can help you to achieve the PLT. Sometimes that means that, you know, it's really helpful to go through an equity and inclusion plan, but often students are not, don't have the plan, and you'll message us and we will work through it with you. So I really can't emphasise enough that that's what our team is about. We're a very small team, and we work very closely with each other to support you to get through the PLT. I think that's something that's quite unique to us than compared with some of the larger providers, is that we are a small and tight-knit team, and we can really, because of that, have a lot more flexibility around how we can support you, and we don't sort of probably have that need to put you through big bureaucratic processes sometimes. But we really, yeah, I would encourage you, if you have a disability of some kind, to come and talk to us about what that might be, or maybe make one of the appointments for a consult. I've just got another question which says, must someone complete this right after they graduate with an LLB, or can they do it in the last 5 years, etc.? So you may have read the 5-year rule. Even if you're outside the 5 years, you just would can have a chat to us. Of course, you can still enrol, but you would need permission if you're outside the 5-year window of having completed your law qualification, and you would just need permission of the Legal Services Board. Lots of students go through that. Don't be put off by that process. So I'm just, really, these are probably the last of our Q&As, I think, with our panel, and we probably do need to wrap up. I would like to, thank so much Beck and Josh for volunteering your time and sharing your experiences in the PLT program so authentically with us tonight. If anyone would like to find out more about UNSW's PLT, please do visit our Graduate Diploma in Legal Professional Practice Degree Finder page for more information or to apply. Please feel free to scan the QR code on the screen, make a quick booking with one of us to have a chat about your circumstances. If you're interested in learning more about the program and how it can bolster your careers in whatever form they are, then, you know, please just come along and have a chat with us. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thanks for your questions. I hope we see you in 2025 in term 1 or term 3. Thank you. Good night, everyone.